Good afternoon, and welcome from a blustery day in Euless, Texas. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Association of Professional Flight Attendants Presidential Candidates Debate for the year 2020. My name is Dr. Brian Lane. I'm the Director of Debate at the University of North Texas, and I'm very, very excited to have you all here with us for a wonderful debate this afternoon between our two candidates for the office of the President of the APFA. I'm here joined with A. Marie Plevridis and Julie Hedrick. Let me tell you just a little bit about the debate before we get started. First of all, for our audience members here, remember there's no recording of the debate. If anybody's recording, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Please turn off your cell phones, your smartphones, your laptops, your iPads, or any other device you use to connect to the cloud. All of these things we should turn off. Also, the audience should maintain a professional air of decorum, which means no heckling or disturbance during the debates. Now, let me tell you, our audience members, a little bit about our format for today. We've had a wonderful series of runoff election this year. We've got a format that will entertain our audience and dig into the platforms of both of our candidates. Both candidates have already emailed me lists of suggested questions. I've chosen among those questions. Our format for this afternoon gives each candidate an opportunity for an opening statement, and then we'll proceed, in which I'll ask the question. Each candidate will be given an equal amount of time to be able to address the question, and then each candidate is given an opportunity to refute the question the answer that their opponent gave for things. We'll close things out today by having time for closing remarks from our candidates. Ladies and gentlemen, before the debate, we determined our speaking order through a coin toss. The winner of our coin toss was Ms. Julie Hedrick. Ms. Hedrick, I'll welcome you for opening comments, please.
Thank you, Professor Lane and the National Ballot Committee for hosting today's debate. Why is this decision so important? Because the days of allowing Doug Parker and his union-busting team to succeed needs to end immediately. We are not going to allow Doug to divide us any longer. Those days are over, and they end now. Those that choose to divide us are only playing into the hands of Doug and his union busters. It is time they stop doing the company's work of divide and conquer. We won in the past because we were unified. In 1993 at a Legacy American, and in 2000 at Legacy US Airways. We won then because we were unified. We will unify again, and we will do it as one airline this time, together. We owe it not only to ourselves, but to the flight attendants that will follow in our footsteps. We are at a crossroads in this union, and we are either going to choose to move forward together or continue down the same failed path that we have been repeating for the last 5 years. We need to shift our focus from attacking each other to our real opponent, the company. My focus today will be on the company, not on my opponent. We have both worked for our union, and I know she has worked hard for the membership. We have an opportunity today to change the course of this election and put all of our focus on the company, not each other. I have put together a team of officers to take on Doug day one. On-the-job training is not required. We bring strength and experience to each of our positions, but we can't do this without you. This is going to require everyone's involvement to establish the momentum to move us forward together. We must start immediately by holding crew schedule accountable for all their contract violations, which happen on a daily basis. It's unacceptable. I'm intimately aware of all of these contract violations. They are getting away with it, and we all know it. It will only change if we commit to this cause and we work together. Moving forward, we must negotiate a contract that reflects the sacrifice and hard work you have put into making American the largest airline in the world. Working together, there is nothing we cannot achieve. 28,000 engaged members is something the company clearly fears. I know this contract. I know what needs to be improved, and I know what they are going to try and take away.
Thank you, Ms. Hedrick. Ms. Plevridis, your opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Thank you, the National Ballot Committee, and thank you, brothers and sisters and all candidates who submitted their willingness to serve for APFA National Office. And thank you, Julie. I stand here now because we are tired. We are tired and fed up. How did we get here? We have concessionary contracts. We have been giving for the past 2 decades, and it is time that we stand up and we say, no more. No more. This is where we are today. We are in negotiations with an adopt and go contract, a concessionary contract that is full of to be determines that only benefit the company. The company violates our contract every day, and there is no recourse. We have a broken reserve system that continues to harm flight attendants day by day. Our flexibility has been stripped from us by the Hard 40. We, the membership, were denied our constitutional right to vote for removal of the Hard 40. And this obstacle remains in our daily lives. My plan is to negotiate an industry-leading contract, or better. Don't we deserve better? We will fight for flexibility, better work rules, higher compensation. We will improve our 401k, benefits, sick policy, and vacation. We will protect our pensions. We will improve reserve and fight to increase the reserve pay guarantee. I just finished another month of reserve, and it's not working. We will fight to have a vote to remove the Hard 40 outside of negotiations for immediate relief. I am committed to stand firm in all things affecting our membership. I have your back at every turn. We will put democracy back where it belongs. Our voice, our votes.
Thank you, Ms. Plevridis. Well, ladies, it's time for us to turn to the debate part of the debate. So I'll ask the first question, which we have gathered from your responses, from your campaigns. I'll repeat the question just so we're all on the same page, and each one of you will have an opportunity to address it for 2 minutes. So our first question. Do you have a plan for restoring the APFA's strength as an independent union? If so, what is it? I'll repeat. Do you have a plan for restoring the APFA's strength as an independent union? If so, what is it? Due to our coin toss, Ms. Hedrick, you're our first one to answer this question. You have 2 minutes.
Well, yes, I talked in my opening statement, and I stressed that the only way that we are going to be a more unified union is by working together. We cannot continue the divide and conquer that this company has helped make happen. Day one, we are ready for our positions, and we are ready to make the changes necessary to help this union succeed. We need to upgrade our communication tools. We need to be able to communicate better with the membership, and we need to hear from them more. Financially, once we're in office, we'll have a better assessment of what we're dealing with as far as the finances are concerned. I can tell you, I'll make sure that I am honest with the membership because it is their money, and they deserve the truth. My team and I want to make the necessary changes for the officers to be able to fly trips. We think we need to be out there more with the membership so that the membership sees us and we hear from them there. We have to return to the basics by working together, realizing our only opponent is the company, and stop living in the past and move forward into the future.
Thank you, Ms. Hedrick. Ms. Plevridis, the same question. Your answer.
Well, yes, I do have a plan. My vision for increasing flight attendant participation within APFA is to provide the tools for all flight attendants to learn the contract at the base level, to promote unionism, I will collaborate with the board of directors and to consider bringing back base offices for members to assemble. My opponent speaks of the officers flying the line and the option to fly the line. That would be very difficult with the task at hand. We have to concentrate on negotiations, fixing our union, and also I don't believe that national officers should be on company payroll if they're going to be flying trips. We can fly a trip right now. As a national officer, all you have to do is trip remove a flight attendant with pay, and you can fly that trip. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Hendrick, you've got 1 minute to refute that particular answer there.
I have spent much of the last 5 years working to help our membership understand this contract. And I can tell you I've done 36 base visits. I've been out talking to the membership on a regular basis about this contract. I do plan to make sure that we have a living contract that makes it easier for our flight attendants when they're out on their trips to understand the contract if they have an issue that arises at that moment. When it comes to working together, I have been working with the board of directors for the last 5 years and helping them to understand the contract and helping them with all of the issues. I've also worked with 5 presidents in the last 5 years and helping to understand this contract. As far as the national officers working out with the members, I truly believe it's time for us to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Hendrick. Ms. Plavridis, 1 minute.
The last 5 years, we've been in turmoil with the concessionary contract. It's taken over 5 years to implement the concessionary contract, and we still have no recourse for the violations. Right now, APFA is over budget due to all the presidential grievances that are sitting on the vice president's desk and all the nods that our bases are having to file because of the ineffective implementation.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Candidates, you might have noticed I may have some trouble with the timer, so please let me know if you can't notice it. I will help out on
Thank
things.
you.
Our second question. All right. As president, you'll be the lead member of the negotiating committee. What do you bring to the position, and what changes would you like to see during contract negotiations? Again, as president, you'll be the lead member of the negotiating committee. What do you bring to the position, and what changes would you like to see during contract negotiations? Ms. Plavridis, we start with you this time.
Okay. What I bring to negotiations is 24 years of union volunteer work. I have sat in a meeting with the current negotiators, speaking to the Section 6 crew accommodations of the JCBA. I was invited to sit in on a meeting with them for my knowledge of crew accommodations. I have worked at the base level as a base council representative. I have provided documentation that have been beneficial for base nods, which are base notices of dispute. What would I like to see different with the negotiations? Well, I would like to be stronger, and I will be stronger against the company. I will take into consideration every flight attendant's recommendation through email communication, phone calls, and surveys as well.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Plavridis. Ms. Hendrick, the same question. Your answer, please.
Doug Parker needs to know that his divisive tactics with this union is over. I will not allow this to continue in these negotiations. This time, we will not fall for his tactics of divide and conquer. So Doug, when I'm president, you're going to have to deal with me and 28,000 engaged flight attendants just like me. Enough is enough. It's time for our fair share. My experience in the last 6 years, I have been sitting across the table from the lead negotiator for the company. It has provided me a very unique experience and one that I am totally prepared to lead in these negotiations. With my experience, I know exactly what this company wants to take away and what they want to keep. And I can tell you, if they want to take something away, it's not going to benefit us. Another thing I'd like to change with this negotiations is that we need to hire a lead negotiating attorney who knows our contract, who knows Doug, and who will fight for us. I will hire that attorney. Doug, time's up. We won't accept your scraps anymore.
Thank you, Ms. Edrick. Ms. Plevrides, a minute to reply to that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay.
I will definitely be strong in negotiations against the company. I, too, have sat across the table from labor relations, have successfully fought for the flight attendants. I believe the last 6 years that my opponent speaks of has only weakened our negotiations, especially if my opponent is at the helm. In my opinion, and I share the opinion of many flight attendants, is that they have her number. The company already has her number. They don't have my number, and they never will. So I would just say, please, if you want a strong leader in negotiations, your choice is me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Plevrides. Ms. Hedrick, reply to that.
Marie, you're entitled to your own opinions, but not to your own version of the facts. The last 6 years I have spent fighting this company and fighting many battles with this company over the contract language. I can tell you that it is not an easy job, but I have worked hard and I am a proven fighter when it comes to this language. It's one thing to think that you know how to represent the 28,000 at negotiations when you haven't done it. I have done it. I know what that looks like. I know how it feels, and I know the last 5 years I have battled this company for this language, and I know that I can do that job better than anyone.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hedrick. Ladies, we'll move on to the next question. The next question states, with the new contract came what has become known as the Hard 40. The company made no secret that they would be open to removing this item from the contract, but with strings attached. As president, how would you address this issue, both with the company and with the membership? Again, I'll repeat, and this is a long one. With the new contract came what has become known as the Hard 40. The company made no secret that they would be open to removing this item from the contract, but with strings attached. As president, how would you address this issue, both with the company and the membership? Ms. Hedrick, we begin with you on this question.
There's no denying the removal of the 40 would allow us more flexibility in our schedules. That doesn't mean that we're all going to fly below 40. It just means that we're going to have more flexible schedules from month to month. It's no secret the company has been willing to remove this provision from the contract. And yes, it's always had strings attached to it. In the past, those strings included a medical threshold, a sick and vacation threshold. They've recently added in, since the negotiation, the JCBA, an employment threshold. All of those provisions, all of those items have a value, and we should not give this away for free. That is why this should only be done in negotiations so that we can recoup the value of this item. before we negotiate anything around this issue, the most important part of this is to make sure we know exactly how all of our membership feels about the 40. So there is a survey out today that I encourage everyone to take, and that will give us an idea of how all of our membership feels about it. But I also think we should do a scientific survey about it. A scientific survey makes sure that we reach every base, we reach every seniority level, every age of our membership. It's a much better way to know when we're at the negotiating table that we are negotiating the will of our membership and that we have the strength of our membership behind us. At the end of the day, we have to stop allowing Doug Parker to use this issue and other issues to divide us. They have used this to bust our union, and enough is enough.
Thank you, Ms. Hedrick. Ms. Plevridis, the same question.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The hard 40 is a huge flexibility restriction that the members want to vote on. A couple of years ago, our national leadership voted to send out the hard 40 removal to the membership for a vote. There were people who opposed this vote, took that vote away from the membership, which was a constitutional right for the membership to vote on it. My opponent speaks that there is a value to the hard 40 or the employment threshold. The hard 40 itself has no value if they just remove it. As a leader, as national president, I will go to Doug Parker and negotiate outside of negotiations to remove the hard 40. I believe that there is a possibility. I will not take no for an answer. Also, if we negotiate the hard 40 away in contract negotiations, we will be giving up something. And what do you want to give up for that? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Plevridis. Ms. Hedrick, 1 minute to reply.
Obviously, Amory and I have differing opinions about the value of this provision in contract negotiations. Another issue that Amory brought up was that the national leadership voted on this. The national leadership of our union is not part of the voting board of directors. Our board of directors are the voting members of our leadership. They did not vote to put the 40 out. The 40, we all realize the flexibility of it, but I really believe that we have to make sure with the 40 that we know exactly how all of the membership feels, and we need various sources to find out this information, not just from one source.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Plevridis, reply to that.
Yes, sir. When I speak of our leadership that put out the hard 40, it was the national president at the time, and the EC committee voted, and then the board pulled the vote. Just to make sure that I'm clear. Thank you.
All right. Well, candidates, we're halfway through our debate, and we turn to an issue in question 4 that was discussed by both campaigns, I believe. Our fourth question is, do you have a plan to improve reserve? If so, what is your plan? I will repeat. Do you have a plan to improve reserve? If so, what is your plan? This time we start with you, Ms.
Okay.
Plevridis.
Yes, I do have a plan. My plan to improve reserve is to fight for higher reserve pay guarantee, reduce the number of flex days, and implement a base percentage of flight attendants on reserve. Bring back an availability type system. That's my plan.
All right. Very good. Ms. Hedrick, same question.
The reserve system we have today is clearly not working. When we have 30-year flight attendants on reserve, I can tell you that was never the intent of this reserve system today. That doesn't mean the only other option is straight reserve. The company has played us all against each other to get what they want for a different reserve system. Remember Doug talking at Crew News, telling all of us why the high reserve percentage was what it was, how our sick hours played into that? It's their way of pitting us against each other, and it's been working. Senior against junior, base against base. It's been working. Up until now, it has worked. And that time is over. We will not allow Doug and the company to determine the best reserve system for us. Working together with the negotiating team and you, I believe we can find a better system. One that decreases the reserve seniority and one that is livable for all of those flight attendants who are on reserve. Another factor is the high reserve percentage. The company has been using this to get what they want from us in this next reserve system. We have never, ever seen reserve percentages as high as 20, 22%. That's really increasing the seniority of our reserves. Along with the fact our reserves aren't flying 85 hours, nowhere close to it. It's time that the union do a better job of being on the company, using the data that we have to decrease that reserve percentage. Lastly, crew schedule's lack of knowledge of the JCBA language and their inefficient use of the reserves daily is also harming us greatly.
Thank you, Ms. Hedrick. I had a feeling we'd get into some issues here. Ms. Blair-Reedus, 1 minute to respond to that.
Yes, sir. So the reserve, as it is right now, is not the intent of what the language was. Then why is it? We've been 5 years implementing this contract, yet I'm hearing that the reserve as it is right now is not the intent. That's not the intent of the language. Again, why are we having so much problems with reserve? And what efforts are being made today to fix it? We can't wait 5 years for a reserve system, an improved reserve system. That needs to be tackled today. I'm willing to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blair-Reedus. Ms. Hedrick, 1 minute.
The intent of the reserve system was to decrease the reserve seniority. That is why the 1 year of straight reserve was added to the rotation that was in the previous contract. It did not do that. We did have studies done. It did not do that. I can tell you that when I am president, I will make sure to put all the effort I have into making sure that we have a better system for our reserves, and that today, before we get to negotiations and before this is finished, that we start really pushing the company on these reserve percentages. Those reserve percentages are harming us every month. Every month when we see that reserve list come out and we see how senior it is, that is harming our flight attendants, and we need to stay on top of the company and put their feet to the fire when it comes to this.
Thank you, Ms. Hedrick. Well, candidates, we turn to our fifth question now, shifting the terrain just a little bit. Our fifth question, do you have a plan on increasing flight attendant participation with the APFA, and if so, what is it? I'll repeat. Do you have a plan for increasing flight attendant participation with the APFA, and if so, what is it? This time, Ms. Hedrick, we start with you, 2 minutes.
Well, yes, absolutely. We need to increase our flight attendant participation at APFA. One of the best ways that I've learned in the last month is just by going out and talking to our membership, sitting in a crew room, listening. That's what we have to do with our membership. It is time we stop talking at them and we listen to what they need and what they want. I can tell you, as far as participation in with the contract, we need to do the best job we can educating our members so that they can be participating when it comes to crew schedule, trying to violate our contract. If they have more education on this and a living contract, they will be able to fight all those contract violations. And I think that participation is key right now.
Thank you, Ms. Hedrick. Ms. Plavridis, same question. 2 minutes.
Yes, well, as national president, I will continue to introduce the new flight attendants to the rich history of APFA. We can implement a national mentoring program to visit all bases that will provide the tools to strengthen our foundation and knowledge. I agree that our members should have the opportunity to learn the contract, to avoid the violations that happen on a daily basis. And like I had mentioned in my opening statement, we have no recourse. It's fly it and grieve it later. We don't want to hear that. So I do agree that we need to send out members, reps to the bases for scheduling classes. We need to go to the flight attendants, definitely. And when I was speaking about base offices, why not have a base office where flight attendants can assemble and we can have training go to the bases? That would be my solution.
All right, thank you, Ms. Plavridis. Ms. Hedrick, 1 minute to respond to that.
Amory, you keep talking about no recourse. We have filed presidential grievances in the last year. I have testified in 4 of those so far. I have helped other grievances here at the union. There is recourse for our flight attendants. We do have flight attendants daily quoting contractual language to crew schedulers and telling them that they are not going to go on that trip because they know that that is against our contract. So there is recourse. Scheduling classes. I have participated in many scheduling classes and helped train many of our flight attendants. I agree with you. We need to do more of that. We have looked at virtual scheduling classes to help with the costs here at APFA. As far as base offices, I'm not sure our budgets can handle that today. We do have a financial situation here.
Ms. Plavridis, the last word on this question goes to you.
Yes, we do have a financial crisis, and yes, it is because of the presidential grievances that keep coming in. It is because of the base nods that keep coming in. If we had an effective implementation, we wouldn't have a budget issue. Yes, I agree. Training needs to happen, not just for reps who want to work here at headquarters, but for all members. Every member in good standing should have the opportunity and the tools to learn our contract.
Thank you, Ms. Plavridis. Well, candidates, it's time for our last question for the debate this afternoon. I'll read and then repeat as we have been doing so far. With the recent announcement of the tentative agreement with the mechanics, the issue of profit sharing is front and center. What are your thoughts on profit sharing, both in the short term and the long term? I'll repeat, this question primarily deals with profit sharing. With the recent announcement of the tentative agreement with the mechanics, the issue of profit sharing is front and center. What are your thoughts on profit sharing, both in the short term and long term? For this question, we start with Ms. Plavridis.
Yes, sir. That is a very good question, especially with the latest announcement of our 1.4 profit sharing that's going to be distributed to flight attendants. I believe that profit sharing should not be negotiated in the contract because it does take away from the value of the contract. What I do think is that we should be able to negotiate outside of the contract for a higher percentage of profit sharing.
All right, thank you, Ms. Plavridis. Ms. Hedrick, 2 minutes to discuss profit sharing.
This is great news for the mechanics, and it's great news for all the employees of American Airlines. Now it's time for Doug to take care of the flight attendants. This is a significant shift from 6 years ago, and it's a shift in the right direction. It's about time the company realizes the importance of profit sharing for its employees and the ability for us to negotiate this in our contract. In the short term, we should be matched with what the mechanics have. In the long term, we'd like to memorialize this in our contract so that it can't be taken away from us. We all have a vested interest in the long-term health of American Airlines. But when the company is doing well, we should all share in the wealth at American. It's time Doug finally recognizes this.
Thank you, Ms. Plavridis, 1 minute.
Yes, congratulations to the mechanics. This does show that the company can offer more in profit sharing. And again, I hold firm that profit sharing should be outside of the contract so we can reap more in compensation within the contract. Absolutely, we deserve profit sharing, and we deserve what every other employee gets and then some.
Very good. Ms. Hedrick, 1 minute.
I don't disagree with this being in negotiations. I'm happy this is in negotiations. This is how we get it higher. That's what the mechanics did. It was in their negotiations. They brought it up to 10%. That is great. That is what we all need to be doing. So I'm happy that this negotiations, it will be in the contract.
All right. Well, candidates, we have successfully dealt with 6 different questions back and forth. I congratulate you on that. The thing that is left for us to do is time for a closing statement. And Ms. Plavridis, you had to speak second at the beginning, so now you start us off for closing statement.
Yes, sir. In closing, I would like to reach out to you, my peers, my brothers and sisters. And I know you know this is the most important time in our profession right now in our career. This is our very first Section 6 negotiations. We haven't had Section 6 negotiations since our industry-leading contract in 2001, unfortunately before 9/11, before our huge loss and tragedy. If you want the same concessionary contract, I'm going to say you can go with my opponent. If you want a strong leader who's not going to back down from the company, bring you an industry-leading contract, I ask you to please vote for me. Ask your friends to get the vote out. Everybody should vote. Get the vote out. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Plavridis. Ms. Hedrick, your closing statement.
Doug Parker has taken advantage of our merger to refine and streamline management's union-busting tactics and at the same time line their pockets. We must come together in the face of the most intense union busting that the labor movement has seen in 30 years. Left unchecked, Doug Parker and his management team will continue to take advantage of each of us. The ongoing contractual violations that continue to harm our flight attendants, it hurts us. There's more than our contract that is at stake here. We are at a crossroads where our careers are at risk. All eyes are on us today and tomorrow. The American Airlines flight attendants will set the bar for the rest of our profession. Your union is responsible for defending the contract and the intent of the language as it was negotiated. When we were working on pay protections, the company that in the dead of the night tried to rewrite certain pay calculations in an attempt to change the intent of the language. We took this information to the union leaders and filed a presidential grievance. It was through hard work and fighting day after day that the company folded their cards and admitted they were wrong. As your president, I bring knowledge and experience to this position, and it requires it. I've spent the last 6 years fighting for the language in every section of this contract. I've testified against this company in 4 separate grievances, including deadheading, pay protections, and one of the largest fights facing us today, the egregious attendance policy. Make no mistake about it, you have a responsibility in all of this as well. You must vote, you must get involved, and we must come together. Only by coming together can we put an end to their union-busting tactics. Now is the time for all of us to tell Doug Parker, his management team, and the American Airlines Board of Directors they have no power over 28,000 American airline flight attendants standing strong together. I urge you to vote in this election. Your vote does matter. My slate includes Larry Salas for Vice President, Josh Bach for Secretary, and Eric Harris for Treasurer. We will be ready to go day one. We need all of you to help us show this company we are not going to allow them to divide and conquer this membership any longer. It's over.
Thank you, and my thanks to both of our candidates on an excellent debate this afternoon. As well, it remains for me to thank the National Ballot Committee for their assistance in producing this, as well as my thanks to all members of the Association of Professional Flight Attendants. Ladies and gentlemen out there watching this broadcast, I'll tell you, you have an important runoff election in front of you. As you've heard the candidates discuss, we have contract negotiations coming up, the issue of the Hard 40, the reserves, profit sharing on the horizon, as well as reaching out to new flight attendants and various proposals for things. I encourage you to participate in the election, to make your voice heard, to talk with your other members of the APFA, and do what they can. Ladies and gentlemen listening, and all of our friends here in Euless, Texas, this is a fantastic debate that we've had this afternoon, and I wish you much, much luck as we conclude this runoff election for the presidential office of the Association of Professional Flight Attendants. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.